From Stonewall Uprising to global celebrations, LGBTQ plus Pride Month symbolizes resilience, diversity, and ongoing activism for equality and inclusion. But do you know the real reasons we celebrate in June?
IOC's new guidelines prioritize respectful coverage of women and transgender athletes. The objective is to combat gender biases and emphasize sporting achievements over identity.
Pelosi's poignant visit to collecting memories at the Library of Congress intertwines personal history and LGBTQ plus advocacy.
Democrats champion LGBTQ plus rights while log cabin Republicans endorse Trump. Despite his hateful LGBTQ plus stance, we will try to explain why. You heard us right, we will try.
As president, Emily Drabinski leads the American Library Association's fight against censorship, advocating for libraries and LGBTQ plus rights amid record book bans and closures.
Good evening. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming platforms. It's time to queer up the news for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ plus community. Our mission is to support the 11 pillars of LGBTQ plus community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our queer culture, the Black community, Latino, lesbians and queer women, trans, student youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS, healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2024, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
All right, let's meet tonight's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome Christopher Gustafson of Gustafson Communications. Christopher is a leading publicity and PR brand manager for many well-known LGBTQ brands, including West Hollywood's Candace Cain television programs and Wilton Manor's Mary It's Mary Productions. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and excited to support Mary It's Mary Productions.
Is this your first time here? Because this is the first time we're doing this together. Is it your first time?
No.
Oh, okay. So I'm not popping your cherry. Oh, man. All right.
I mean, the night is young.
The night is young, though. All right. Next, let's welcome anchor Buddy Frey, a longtime South Florida resident. He supports many of our local nonprofit organizations like Julian's Fountain of Youth and the Stonewall National Library Museum. Welcome, Buddy.
How are you, JC?
Well, we popped each other's cherries a long time ago, so we're going to move on from that one. All right, next up, we got Danna Davis. She is the co-owner of Mary It's Mary Productions. Oh, I see a connection here.
Yes.
Projects include working with reality star partner Candace Cain and her new series, Candace Cain's Secret Garden, now playing on Hulu. She is working on the new LGBTQ plus medical reality series called Doctor's Orders. It's sickening. Based right here in Wilton Manors. Welcome, Danna.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Oh my God, I'm so glad I get to have you.
You know, I'm so excited because the city of Wilton Manors and all the amazing commissioners and mayors presented us with a proclamation.
What? No way.
Of Mary, it's Mary Day, honey.
Yay! That's amazing.
2024.
2024. And me and Candace are so excited, and Christopher, about this. And we're so honored We're so honored.
That's amazing. Congratulations, guys. That's huge.
Yeah.
When am I going to get my day? That's amazing, you guys.
That's today.
No, it's not, but I want one now. All right, next, let's welcome Corey Billions. Corey is a proud LGBTQ plus community member from West Palm Beach. He has served as a pharmacy technician, now that I know that, I'm going to call you later, girl, for 10 years and currently works as a peer coordinator at Community Care Resource. Corey, Night in the Clouds on Wheels featuring Saucy Santana is taking place on June 30th at Ivy Palm Beach. Tell me what's happening there, because I love me some Saucy Santana.
It's going to be a spicy night. You know, Saucy Santana, he's one of the leading gay music artists right now.
Yep.
And West Palm, it doesn't have the much clout as Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So the fact that we got someone like that up there, it's going to be so much fun.
It is.
It is amazing.
That looks like it's going to be amazing.
Yes. And I live for Saucy.
And of course,
I do too. honestly.
this is tonight's lead anchor, Jonathan Casañas,
Yay.
a board member of Full Ward Miami. He is also one of the producers of Gay Ocho Festival, the largest Latin diversity and inclusion festival in the nation. Welcome, Jonathan Casañas.
Thank you. And we got each other's names right. Did you see that? Did anybody catch that?
We practiced.
Oh my God, I was so nervous about that.
Perfect.
All right, well, we are the reporters of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community is in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are some of the bullet points of the queer news for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. First this evening, let's queer up gay culture. Why does LGBTQ plus celebrate Pride in the month of June? In the vibrant mosaic of LGBTQ plus history, June stands as a beacon of celebration and remembrance. But why June? The roots of Pride trace back to a pivotal movement or moment in LGBTQ plus history, the Stonewall Uprising of June 28, 1969. Stonewall wasn't just a riot, it was the Big Bang that ignited the modern LGBTQ plus rights movement. Yet Stonewall wasn't the first spark of resistance. From the drag queens and the hustlers of Cooper's Donuts in 1959 to the patriots of Compton's Cafeteria in 1966, LGBTQ plus individuals have been standing up against injustice for years. In recent decades, Pride has evolved to embrace the diversity of the LGBTQ plus community. Dyke marches, Black Pride celebrations, and trans marches have emerged as vital expressions of intersectional activism. These events, born out of desire for greater representation and inclusion, have become integral to the fabric of Pride Month. As we celebrate Pride Month in June, it's essential to honor its history while acknowledging the work that lies ahead. From the streets of Stonewall to the halls of power, the LGBTQ plus community continues to push for equality and acceptance. With each pride flag waved high, we reaffirm our commitment to a world where love is love and all identities are celebrated. Pride Month isn't just a celebration. It's a declaration of resilience, a testament of the power of community, and a call to action for a more just and equitable future. And I said LGBTQ plus quite a lot in that story.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But you know what I got from this? As I was reading this earlier today, I couldn't help but think of my own story, you know? Mm-hmm. And I said my own story here a couple of times, but I was outed by my mom. Oh. So when I think of Pride, I always run back to my mother's experience and in turn my experience. And I feel bad because I gave my mom so much shit about how she handled my coming out, you know, that I just think I just became so rebellious. And that's what Stonewall was. It was just a rebellion, right? We were just so sick and tired of the actions that were taken upon us, whether it was taking us out of the clubs, putting our names in the newspaper, getting us fired, whatever the case was. It was exactly what my mother did to me. But my mother's experience was her experience. And she was a child during Stonewall. She recognized that it could happen. So the first thing she said was, why do you want a miserable life? She saw the AIDS epidemic. So she was like, why do you want to die of AIDS? And so these things kept, coming up instead of thinking, wow, my son's gay, let me support my child. And so every time I think of Pride, I go back to that story. And I know a lot of people have similar stories and have worse stories than mine. I'm very, very, lucky that my story is a positive one because she is now super supportive. Nice. We're besties. If I want my mom to come to Pride, which I don't because it's not for her, it's for me. If I wanted to, she would. So that's what I think of Pride. And I'm so glad we've come so far nowadays.
Well, thank you, JC, for reminding me how old I am. Since it sounds like your mother and I are probably the same generation.
Yes, Daddy.
But
I always find it so shocking that like the parents that don't accept their young kids for being LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
And then, you know, years down the road, they're like best friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it's hard to swallow.
Yeah.
It's like, really, girl?
Yeah.
Hard to swallow.
But what's important to me is, you know, the history of the LGBTQ plus community is not just the battles we've had; it's the successes we've had. We have a presence where we were at the foundation of rock and roll with James Brown, and we were at the presence of, you know, we've supported so many people like Bette Midler who have become icons, and it's not just music. We played a huge role in World War II by breaking the codes. You know, we're reminding ourselves of our successes.
Well, yes.
as well
I'm just
as
gonna
our-
say the
as our
world doesn't
challenges.
spin without the gays.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Amen.
We're always in the center of pop culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're most creative.
Yep.
The most detailed.
Visual.
Creative.
The most overlooked.
We've been
because there's so
forefront
much
of-
talent that gets
We've been at the
overlooked.
forefront of IT. I mean, you know, it's
Yep.
not just the celebration of what we've gone through. Yes, the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 80s and 90s was horrible. But look at our history before then. And yes, there was a challenge to it because of social norms. But we had success, and we
Yeah.
had presence, and we had
It just wasn't
position.
talked about.
Yeah.
We have
It
the
was-
resources now, so we can make ourselves
But
knowledgeable
that's
of those
why
things.
that's why I'm glad about Pride, because we can tell
Yeah.
these younger generations Pride didn't begin in 80.
And Pride is not just
know?
a drunk,
Yeah.
sloppy kebab fest.
And
You celebrate love and life.
we've also created a platform like this where we can really unpack the news.
Absolutely.
And just kind of figure out how we're kind of receiving it all.
Right.
How it's impacting our lives.
It really, you know, LGBTQ plus has been here since the beginning of time.
Right.
Like, it's right there. It's
The cavemen
known,
were
it's
there.
History.
Exactly.
So why are people still gagging? You know,
Okay.
like, why are they gagging?
Well, I find it interesting. I'm glad we have a month
Gagging.
because sometimes we forget to celebrate ourselves.
But we need to
Yes.
celebrate all year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
365, yes.
For sure.
All right. So let's queer up sports. Paris 2024 Olympics embrace inclusive reporting guidelines. In a groundbreaking move towards inclusivity, the International Olympic Committee, IOC, unveiled its latest portrayal guidelines, setting a new standard for media representation ahead of the Paris 2024 Olympics. The guidelines prioritize respectful and equitable coverage of transgendered Olympians, marking a significant step forward in promoting gender diversity within the sporting world. Comprising a comprehensive 33-page document, the guidelines primarily address the need to combat okay, I blew it again. What's the word? Misogynistic portrayals of female athletes, and I apologize. Emphasizing the importance of fair and empowering coverage. However, the final 5 pages are dedicated to outlining best practices for reporting on transgender individuals participating in the games. Reporters are urged to refrain from using terms such as biologically male or born female when referring to transgender individuals, opting instead for terms like transgender woman or transgender man that affirm their gender identity. The guidelines underscores the importance of respecting athletes' preferred names and pronouns, as well as centering on their achievements, rather than solely focusing on the transgender status. Of particular note is the recommendation to highlight the sporting accomplishments of transgender athletes, shifting the narrative away from controversies surrounding their identity. This directive claims to ensure that coverage remains focused on their talents and contributions to their respective sports, while the guidelines offer recommendations for equitable coverage of female athletes, such as avoiding gendered language and non-sexualized imagery. It is the inclusion of trans-friendly reporting that has drawn criticism from opponents of transgender rights. However, the IOC promises an unwavering commitment to inclusivity and diversity. This is going to be a tough Olympics because with the current political scope or leaning towards so many different countries at this point in time, and the political statements, it's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be an important first step. The first step is always the hardest and the biggest step. So, you know, I think it's pivotal and important, especially from an international organization representing the entire world that is not just the United States or not just Italy or Canada, this is a first big step.
It's fair to set the bar with the media, because you know how Fox News will immediately take that and just be like, that's a biological male and shouldn't be competing against blah, blah, blah. So I think that that's fair and reasonable.
But we have to acknowledge that we're still going to get that bias.
Oh yeah, of course.
But I think it's the first. I mean, it's the first big step on the world scale for the.
Are there trans athletes? Do you think, coming from other countries? Because I feel like okay.
Look at Russia.
Okay.
Well, listen, I think this is a huge step, because the Olympics are obviously international, right? They touch every country in the world. So it's a huge statement that they're making. They're telling everyone, these are the guys, they're not going to follow these guys.
No, they're not. It's going to be a hit or miss.
It is a statement. We're talking about it now. Sure, we're queer news, but it's going to be spoken about in so many countries, especially those that are against this. This is a huge step, just allowing the rest of the world to know this is where they stand.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are going to follow the rules or the guidelines, and we're going to show the rest of the world, in terms of broadcasting, what that should look like. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's amazing that they were so brave enough to put this in their bylaws to be able to show the world this is what.
And that's my point.
But we know
it's a big step.
But we know that conservatives are going to have a field day with this, the conservative media. But
when do they not? Right?
Exactly. But I think this is a good starting point.
It shows respect for the trans community, announcing them for who they are and not what the mass media wants to present them as.
As a transhuman, I just feel like trans athletes should have all the rights that every other athlete has.
But we need to also
we
need to be respectful in the fact that the trans athlete represents maybe 3%. It's going to be single-digit athletes.
Of course.
Yes.
So we don't.
That was my question. I didn't even know how many were, but even if it was 3%, that's a huge statement for such a small percentage.
But I'm just saying it's an important conversation. But we also have to talk about the celebration of the athletes, regardless of their sexuality and their identity.
Their talent, their talent in their individual.
And I think that's what's important about this, because I think that's what the IOC is doing. This is about the sports. Don't worry about who they are today or last week.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
This is about the sports. So it's going to be a first step. It's going to be sloppy.
Do you think the odds would be shifted a little because they are a trans person and could potentially have an advantage or disadvantage?
Well, that's the whole political bent.
Yeah, that's the
probably
this accusation that as a male, born male but becoming a female, transitioning, supposedly has a leg step up with the biology, but the injections and the medications given supposedly balance that out, because they.
Well, I'm sure they're testing for that as well. I think it's a certain level, a certain number that you have to reach to be disqualified. But there is also other athletes who had some sort of disadvantages, like the Australian athlete who had the metal legs, I forgot what they're called, that he didn't prosthetics.
Yeah.
He didn't win, but he was like third place or something, getting into the qualifications. And that was huge because that is a disadvantage.
Yeah.
He was able to do well, but that's all they spoke about. And then there was rioting because they said he wouldn't have done so well if he didn't have the prosthetics, which is crazy to me.
And conservatives just want to maintain that we should have a separate and apart Olympics for trans women and trans men.
I don't think that should be on the table.
Exactly.
Well, listen, there's not enough athletes to make another league.
Right.
Well, I'm going to sign Danna up.
Yeah.
We're going to sign her up.
What are you playing?
Ice skating, cheerleading, ribbon twirling, and face.
I'm still having flashbacks from gym class, It was a nightmare. And, I was lucky one year, I think in 9th grade, that there was another kid that had the same name as me. So the first day of gym, I just didn't show up. And so then the gym teacher thought,
poor kid.
I'm a mistake.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, this is bored.
Yeah.
I'll go to the library or art school, and like art class, she was gay. So she had my back. You can,
The good Judy.
That means quite a lot. But then one day, like at the end of the year, the scary gym teacher, he was really scary. He was kind of built like you.
That's not scary.
And
That's not scary.
Let's say very masculine.
Yeah.
And he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Shh."
Caught.
And I'm like,
Well, there's no Olympic dodgeball, so you don't have to worry about it.
Soon. All right, let's move on.
Next up, let's queer up gay culture. Walking through history, Pelosi's Visit Collecting Memories exhibit. House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, a stalwart figure in American politics, embarked on a poignant journey through the corridors of history at the Library of Congress's latest exhibit, Collecting Memories. Nestled within the hallowed halls of the David M. Rubenstein Treasures Gallery, this exhibit is a stirring testament to pivotal moments in the nation's past. Amidst artifacts once in Abraham Lincoln's possession and relics evoking the trials of the COVID-19 pandemic, Pelosi's visit took a personal turn as she encountered letters and photographs adorning the submissions to the AIDS Memorial Quilt. Her connection to the AIDS Memorial Quilt runs deep, rooted in personal loss and resolute advocacy. From the nascent days of the Names Project to facilitating its iconic display on the National Mall, her influence has been profound. Her efforts in 2019 ensured the quilt's return to San Francisco, securing its archival legacy at the American Folklife Center. Remember, Pelosi is a longtime resident of San Francisco. Though her visit was brief, its impact resonates far beyond the marble walls of the Library of Congress. Collecting Memories is set to be available for visitors until December 2025. Pelosi criticized Republicans in a frank discussion with The Advocate, condemning their exploitation of LGBTQ+ issues for political gain. She also lamented Martina Navratilova's stance against transgender participation in sports, giving an example of her transgender grandniece, Skylar. Pelosi emphasized how acceptance and support can positively impact transgender youth. There's a lot to unpack here. I'm not going to touch the Navratilova stuff,
Okay.
but I think it's always important when someone like the Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House, brings up queer culture, like anything that we are kind of dealing with. And I loved that she's making a very specific thing about her grandniece, Skylar, and talking about the transgender, how she and her family are dealing with transgender in the real world, and how they're kind of navigating with Skylar. And I also think when I was reading about the AIDS Memorial, it reminded me of Madonna's concert over the summer, which I had the privilege of going to. And she did this incredible celebration of just kind of that time, the AIDS Memorial and like the quilt and all the important people that were part of that moment in time.
Well, I personally love this. I don't think, she talks about Republicans using us to create divisiveness or, maybe some sort of political gain. This felt very personal to me on her end, because there's nothing to gain from her going to this on our end. We already knew that she was supportive. She's not trying to change any minds.
Yeah.
She has a personal experience to it. She went, she publicized it, but she did it so that we could see we still have people out there for us. She's not running for office, right? So there's nothing for her to gain out of this except something personal. And that's what I take from this. And I find it very, very endearing. Because normally I wouldn't really connect to these types of stories. I'm always kind of like the pessimist, but this feels very genuine.
I agree.
She's not just jumping on a bandwagon.
Real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's a very compassionate lady.
Yeah.
It's always nice to look back at certain times in LGBTQ plus history, but I always hate that we jump to the quilts and, some of these that are not
wait a minute.
beautiful.
I'm going to stand up for the quilt because I was there helping with the quilt.
Well, you can stand up for the quilt.
But I'm just saying, I think that it's important because of a number of things. One, it's one of the few things that the United States in general, when you say, give me a moment in history for LGBTQ+, people will say, the quilt in the 80s. Now, yes, it's a horrible medical issue, a worldwide travesty on that end. But it also proves to the world, as the size of the quilt, how many people were truly impacted and infected.
Yeah.
And at the same time, a lot of people come out of there feeling refreshed with hope, knowing that we have improved our lives so much. It was also a huge political moment that was a benefit to the LGBTQ+ moment. Because it gave us that political stance to stand up for the first time, especially against Ronald Reagan and the Republicans.
Okay.
So, yes, we always.
I just think there's
we
also
default to-
some beacons that can shed light on.
But that was an important.
Like we acknowledged earlier, we have the resources to look and acknowledge past situations that were shunned, not looked at, not shone a light on.
But we're
this
only
is always
we're only
a go-to.
40 years past that, and a lot of the younger youth don't even know, have never seen the quilt. They hear the stories, but they weren't impacted by
What
people
do
passing.
you have any kind of specifics? What other moments in time would you rather have?
Tu Wong Fu.
Yeah, just
honestly, I'll take that.
Important
No, I-
pop culture moments, yeah.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
I was not, but I would take that. Honestly, it's iconic. It changed a lot of people's lives. I get what you mean. You want more of a positive spin on something. Yeah.
Not that the quilt isn't positive.
Sure.
It's just always, it's for me, low-hanging fruit.
Right.
There's other alternatives.
But we're talking about Washington D.C.,
Sure,
where we have the
sure.
mentality and the attention span of what can we do in a soundbite this week.
And I
So
think-
to have that there for till December of 2025 is, pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean-
the fact that Pelosi has been in office since I think she started in like 84. Like
Yeah.
she's 84 years old.
It's been in there 50 years.
But yeah, so the fact that she has always been like a staunch ally for our community and is not has no reservations about talking about it and embracing things.
No, I encourage it because
Granddaughter,
those are the people that are shaking and making votes, and they have a say and they have a vote on some of these issues, or she did at least. And those type of people, of course, need to speak up. Of course, need to acknowledge us as a community. Just
Yeah.
Well, we gotta
acknowledge all of us,
Exactly.
not just
Absolutely.
one portion.
Yeah, no, I
Exactly.
hear you.
Because
I totally
even how they make prep ads, they cater to a gay as opposed to catering to everybody. Everybody can get
You're right.
HIV.
yeah.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's
Good
all.
point.
All right, Corey, what we got next?
Next, let's queer up politics even more. Log cabin Republicans rally behind Trump despite his hateful LGBTQ plus views. As Democrats embrace LGBTQ plus voters during Pride Month, a stark contrast emerged as Republicans either remain silent or actively distance themselves from the community. Amidst this political landscape, the Log Cabin Republicans, an LGBTQ plus GOP group, have emerged as vocal supporters of former President Donald Trump. Despite his controversial history regarding LGBTQ plus policies, Charles Moran, president of the Log Cabin Republicans, fervently defend Trump, asserting that he's for the LGBTQ plus individuals and improved during his presidency, regardless of their identity markers. Moran cited Trump's track record as a businessman, philanthropist, and politician, claiming it demonstrated consistent inclusion of LGBTQ plus people. However, critics are rightfully pointed to Trump's pledges to target transgender individuals if elected, including plans to criminalize gender-affirming health care for youth and restrict transgender participation in school sports. In contrast, President Joe Biden's first term has seen proactive measures to support LGBTQ plus rights, including signing the Respect for Marriage Act, which enshrined marriage equality into law. Biden's campaign has actively engaged with the LGBTQ plus community, hosting various Pride Month events, including an upcoming celebration at the White House and an LGBTQ plus fundraiser in New York City. Vice President Kamala Harris also demonstrated commitment to LGBTQ plus rights. The political divide on LGBTQ plus issues highlights the significance of this community in shaping political discourse and policy decisions. I will not be voting for the carrot. I kinda don't wanna vote for the other sleepy guy, but we don't have much options out here. And the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do acknowledge us in a positive way, and they do have us in the community, and they are out and about. Again, this is what we're just touching on. These people are showing different ways that we are supported, that we are here, that we are seen, that we are heard.
Yeah.
But it's also important because we do have an option. In this election, it is not about one person against another. It is not about Trump. It is not about Biden. It is about democracy
Yes, democracy.
versus fascism.
Yes.
So we have to look at this and we have to do our homework about what has successfully passed recently. The lack of laws being passed by the current Republican Congress. Yes, we have different issues with immigration and everything else, but politics is about coming to the middle and finding what benefits the mass market. Not just Donald wants to be in office and he wants to go ahead and have political retribution against whoever and make his own laws, and then have people say, yes, he has 34 convictions of a felony and he lost this lawsuit, that lawsuit, and a slew behind it. It's about democracy continuing. So when you sit here and say, I'm not going to vote for a carrot and I'm not going to vote for Sleepy Joe, you're getting caught in the PR of the bullshit. You need to pay attention to the
It's more so
politics.
what's affecting me and what benefits me. All of the recent laws and all of these recent things, majority of that has nothing to do with my future and what's going to benefit me.
But it
Yeah,
will
because there has to be more as to why the log cabins support.
Well, the log cabin is looking at the business aspect. They've been drinking just enough of the Kool-Aid in the PR aspects than they are looking at the actual legislation that is passed under the Biden administration. So I'm asking everybody to do your homework and read both sides of the equation. Do the legislation. Don't look at the personalities.
Are you a registered Republican?
No, I am not.
But I do agree with you.
Girl, that was brave.
I agree that, these are two not such great choices. I think we all
Absolutely
I
not.
think we all accept that. But to your point, democracy
But
is at stake.
Why is this even allowed to have a
Two
human at a
80-year-olds?
certain age running?
but
what?
That's
Not the position right now. It's about politics.
Right,
It's
no, I
about
understand
legislation. You're getting lost in the age of the people. Both of them are within 3 years of each other's age.
They are, of course. I
Yeah,
know
but that doesn't make us
But
celebrating and excited about two 82-year-olds. But
why?
But I'm saying don't get
battling
lost.
it out.
I'm saying don't get lost in the personalities.
Right, I totally
we
get
This
that.
is about
But
legislation.
I'm confused why there was not more choices during the course.
Yeah, why hasn't there been any other
why
politicians to
hasn't-
step up to the plate? Like that's
let's
my...
have a
Because
go at
they were
it.
thinking about who was going to win and who wasn't.
That's right.
Everybody wants to see this battle again because they knew that
why?
Trump was going to run again. The only person that they thought was going to be a competitor was going to be the president we
and
have
I'm
now.
not sure I agree with that.
The issue is
I'm
the
with you.
bigger
I don't
picture
agree with
is
that.
we're getting all this wrong information, whereas everyone thinks that you're only financially stable with Trump in office, which doesn't factually seem to be.
There's no
Right.
proof to it. There's
But
no
when I'm
fact
talking
to
about
it.
the Republican friends that I have, they're money motivated. They're
The
financially
stock
motivated.
market has done way better during these
Records have been made in the last 3.5 years.
Like the stock market went to Dow Jones went to 40,000. 40,000.
It went to a
Crime
record
is
high,
at its lowest
and
in a lot of-
unemployment rate is at its lowest as well. Like
Crime
but
is at
these
its
are-
lowest.
These are things that we, as LGBTQ folk, can agree on.
Yeah. Right.
But go out to the world and go talk to them about it. They're not going to
But
believe
yeah,
it.
conservatives want you to realize that all this stuff that they've done has no consequence.
But
doesn't
that's because
benefit anybody.
That's because it's about PR of the personalities, and that's why I keep saying go back to the legislation. When somebody gives you a fact, challenge that fact. Do your homework on that fact.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Just do your homework. And let's just remember one thing. When Trump was in office, the White House was blacked out. When just a year before, Obama had that White House lit up in pride colors.
Yeah.
Anyway, buddy, what do we got next?
Okay, as if I haven't preached enough. Let's queer up gay culture. Queer librarian Emily Drabinski's tireless efforts against library censorship. In the face of escalating challenges to intellectual freedom and access to information, Emily Drabinski, a stalwart advocate for libraries and LGBTQ rights, continues to spearhead a transformative movement within the American Library Association, known as the ALA. Running for presidency of the ALA last year, Drabinski made it her mission to highlight the crucial role libraries play in society. With book bans reaching record highs and libraries under pressure and threats of closure, she remains undeterred in her pursuit of equitable access to knowledge. In a candid conversation with LGBTQ Nation, Drabinski revealed the deeply personal nature of her advocacy. As an openly out lesbian, she has found herself a target of attacks amid the onslaught of censorship targeting LGBTQ+ literature. Yet she remains resolute. Under her stewardship, the AELA's Office of Intellectual Freedom diligently documents instances of censorship, while the Unite Against Book Bans campaign equips advocates with the tools needed to defend the right to read. Drabinski's proactive approach extends beyond rhetoric, as she travels extensively to engage with librarians nationwide and has established a task force dedicated to addressing the challenges faced by LGBTQ+ library workers. Drawing from her own experiences of facing personal attacks, she emphasizes the importance of visibility and solidarity within the LGBTQ+ community. So piggybacking for 2 seconds on our last conversation about politics, we now have book bans. We have a lack of history. We don't want to look at history. This woman is bravely doing that, and she's doing her damnedest to make sure the LGBTQ+ community is a part of that acknowledgement of the, the benefits of literature, of all literature.
Well, to be fair, some of
safely.
that was done at the state level,
Yes.
not at the federal.
But that's where it's needed, because reading scores and education in general is such a low right now. So people like her, I applaud.
I'm in love with her. I love her look, first of all. She's adorable.
Love a good librarian.
She has the best blouse.
Yes, I love a good blouse.
She's amazing for doing this. She's a hero for doing this, and it's terrifying with all the bans on books. It's really creepy and scary.
Well, listen, I'm not a reader, okay? I've read maybe 6 books in my whole life, and a lot of them were forced on me. I swear.
Come on, JC.
I read Harry Potter because I wanted it. That was the only thing. Everything else was given to me. But I did read a few things that changed my life, and there's a funny quote that Emily says in an article in The Advocate that she says, when people try to limit who we can be as readers, they're really setting limits on who we can be as people.
Of course.
And what's interesting is the only things that I've read have actually changed me as a person. And sure, I should read more, right? So I can be a better person. But I found that quote to be super, super interesting, because I know that there's a moment where kids want to figure out who they are. They want to identify. They want to reach out to something that's going to tell them whether they are in the right or they're in a different path and they need to be. And if there's literature out there where they can identify with or reflect and kind of relate to, that their lives will be so much better. Because when I was young, I did not have that. No. So I went to a book about astronauts, and I was like, I want to be an astronaut. It's crazy. I went to the Space Museum, bought a book on astronauts, and for 10 years, I wanted to be an astronaut because that one book changed my life. But if I had a book that could tell me that it was okay, that I liked my gym teacher, or that I was excited about my boyfriend, my friend boy, then I would have had an easier escape than the reality that I faced internally.
Yeah. But see, I'm going to give you a situation. I came out because of a book.
Oh, see, right.
And I'm old enough because we didn't have the games, we didn't have all, we didn't have the video games and all that. What book? The Front Runner. I was a junior in high school, a sophomore in high school, and I was in track and field, long distance, and I stumbled across it by just literally finding it in the library. Nobody directed me to it. But it's a very important, pivotal book about a gay track. A gentleman who was involved in sports and is coming out. And it made a lot of history in the 60s when it came out, because it was an obviously gay character.
Yeah.
There was no discussion. It was like you watch the gentleman move from am I gay to having, discovering his sexuality, to dating and the failures of dates and the success of dates and the reality of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, because it's scary out here.
It's important that we read, and that's what makes this so important, because had I not stumbled upon that book, I would never have gone, oh shit, I'm not alone.
And shout out to librarians just doing their thing, because you know what, that's it's a tricky place to be right now. The library.
Banning books is like trying to control society.
Well, banning books is revisionist history, because you can sit here and claim anything you want.
Right.
If you don't go back and do the homework. That's why I keep saying, when you get a fact, challenge that fact, read that fact.
All right. Well, tonight's broadcast is presented by viewers like you, and the generous support by Visit Lauderdale. Everyone under the sun.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set right here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
We finish tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up business. Community first. LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs lead in creating positive local change. A new report by payroll specialist Gusto reveals that LGBTQ plus business owners in the U.S. are as focused on community impact as on profits. According to Gusto's 2024 New Business Formation Report, 70% of LGBTQ plus business owners cited positively impacting local communities as a key motivator for launching their businesses, in contrast to 53% of all surveyed entrepreneurs.
Well, this happens to me as well. Gay Ocho Festival does a festival in Little Havana. We have a counterpart that does a similar festival, and we happen to make that strip, the retail shops there, a lot more money, and they're a lot happier with our festival than they are our counterpart. So let's just say that.
Okay.
Nice. LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up sports. Super Bowl champs Kansas City Chiefs remain silent on Pride Month. Harrison Butker's team, the Kansas City Chiefs, is among several NFL teams not publicly celebrating Pride Month. Despite widespread recognition, the Pride Month received from celebrities like Taylor Swift, Queer Eye's Jonathan Van Ness, and Bridgerton's Jessica Madsen, the Super Bowl champions remain silent. Other teams such as the Dallas Cowboys, Atlanta Falcons, and Cincinnati Bengals have also not acknowledged the month. On the other hand, the NFL has made an effort to stand with the LGBTQ plus fans. Gays in sports, love it. I think these teams, they don't care. They get their 95% fanship and the rest of the year. So they don't care. And I'm sure they did a test the last couple of years, all the rainbow shit that they were advertising, and didn't really get a big margin. So,
well, last year was a rough year from a business perspective with people attacking Target and all these other companies. So I think it's people just kind of step back, but it's important that the NFL made a big concerted effort to at least acknowledge.
Yeah.
And we have to take those little steps as long as those big.
Well, listen, I don't expect every company to make a statement, you know? But I'm also not going to make a statement every time Taylor Swift shows up to a game. Right. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Like,
we've seen Taylor, okay?
I know, right? The Eras Tour.
All right, LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up the worldview. El Safari, Mexico City's hidden LGBTQ plus haven in the 1960s. In 1960s Mexico City, amidst a predominantly Roman Catholic, machismo culture, and a repressive government, El Safari stood as the country's only gay bar. located at the corner of Ave and Hamburgo streets. It featured exotic decor and drag performances. Despite police raids and attacks on queer spaces, El Safari survived until 1966, thanks to its owner, Fernando Romero, the rumored closeted chief of Mexico City's judicial police. Can you imagine a country with only one gay bar?
I would die.
That was pretty out there for the judicial lead of the Mexican police to own a gay bar.
Yeah.
So God
One
bless
gay
us
bar.
all.
That feels like Miami now, but
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I look at Wilton. Wilton has like what, 36 gay bars and restaurants on one boulevard. It's insane. It's amazing.
also I feel like we outed the
What happened?
The chief.
yeah.
What happened?
Shout out to him.
in Miami. Like what is
I
going
have-
on? There's
I
like
have
2 gay
no-
bars.
I have no idea, but we're gonna get it back.
That's why we need Calle Ocho.
Yes.
Yes.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up entertainment. Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer star in new Hulu sitcom Mid-Century Modern. Nathan Lane and Matt Bomer will star in Mid-Century Modern, a new Hulu sitcom produced by Ryan Murphy. The series, set in Palm Springs, California, features the two actors as best friends. Bomer plays Jerry Frank, a former Mormon outed by his ex-wife, while Lane portrays Bunny Schneiderman, a retiring businessman. The show wishes to fulfill the audience's craving for a queer-centric comedy. Now, I secretly had a weird crush on Nathan Lane, so I watched anything Nathan Lane. I love everything that he does, and secretly I probably would bang him again today too. But anyway, that's for another story.
Well, let's talk about Bomer from Magic Mike.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sexy.
I'm like Nathan Lane.
And we need the queer representation
We
in
do.
TV shows.
Well, I'm
Yes, man.
Nathan Lane.
Doctor's order.
Doctor's
Yeah.
Orders
Order.
and other shows like that.
Orders and
but
everything,
I'm just
for
happy to see
sure.
Nathan Lane because, you know, like every other.
Iconic. Like Nathan Lane is an iconic actor from Broadway.
But not only that, but it's also an age thing. I mean,
Yeah.
99% of the shows, it's like, okay, he's 23.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
You know,
You're right.
we need
You're
to
right.
have age, you know, and trans, and we need to represent the whole.
Yeah.
Sounds
that's for
actually
sure.
really fun.
So I'm
I like
looking
the
forward
premise
to
of
it.
that.
Yeah.
And Matt Bomer is not bad on the eyes.
That's not my
LGBTQ
tea, but
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up.
Expressions are so twisted. It's like Nathan Lane.
Being Black and Gay, a night of music and support at Hunter's Nightclub. Hunter's Nightclub presents Being Black and Gay on June 27th, featuring Terry Dyer and Christopher Hamlin. This event, supporting Pride Line's youth services, offers an intimate musical journey amplifying the Black LGBTQ plus voice. VIP tickets are at $45 and include beverages, and $25 is for general admission. Sponsored by Hunter's Nightclub and Hotspots Happening Out Television, with partners in South Florida, Ujima Men's Collective, and South Florida Tennis Club. Shout out to Terry Dyer. He has a good voice. He's always fun.
Love Pride Lines. Love
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
Now let's talk about
Dr.
real
Summers.
Sexy. Dr.
Love you,
Summers
Dr.
is
Summers.
sexy. Okay, that's
Hi,
my
Dr.
crush.
Summers.
What's up, Dr. Summers?
Yeah,
Oh my
shout out to
God,
Terry
yes,
for sure. I've worked with Terry. Anything Terry puts his hand on, it is gold. Get his book, Being Black and Gay.
Yes.
Amazing. Shout out to him. I support everything that he does. I love
And
it.
it's nice to see, you know, some Black environments
Yeah.
on Wilton Manor, Manor, you know.
Let's
Absolutely.
get
And like I
It's a little light on that, but
You're right.
there's a start.
Yep. With all due respect, last night was an amazing event.
Yes.
You know, for
Juneteenth was yesterday. No manners.
Tiffany.
Yes.
really great
They are.
highlighting like
Gianna,
great
incredible.
local artists and
Yes.
Because there's a lot of
poets
talent.
and all of it. A
Poets.
great panel discussion.
So that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, let's share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Jonathan Casañas, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters and anchors of the Queer News Tonight, including Christopher Gustafson, Buddy Frey, Danna Davis, Corey Billions, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.